Hi everyone, thank you all for coming. Thanks John. I wanted to start by recapping some of the things that Sam mentioned in his talk earlier today. The first thing being that over the last decade, digital has been a relatively cheap media to invest in. We've been able to put ads in front of people for pennies, fractions of pennies on some platforms. And it's also allowed us to attribute all of our activity, which has led brands to focus so heavily on that last 100 yards of the consumer journey, the bottom of the funnel, the bit with intent when people are ready to buy. I think Ian mentioned that as well. So it's no surprise then as marketers that we focus so heavily on metrics like cost per acquisition, cost per lead, cost per sale. At the end of the day, we're all here to generate revenue for businesses. So that's what it's taught us to focus on. It's taught us to follow the money. But at what cost are we doing this? I think that we're often blind to the way that our campaigns are experienced by people because we focus so much on driving that ROI. And in marketing, if we get this wrong, we can really be damaging brands. You know, we've got the keys to the car, you know, and without realizing it, we can end up spamming users and delivering schizophrenic experiences across channel. Now, let me explain what I mean, give you a bit more info. Let's walk through how, you know, some brands might have grown their digital activity online in recent years. You know, chances are you might have started with some paid search, Google Ads. Remember, we want to cover that last 100 yards when people are searching with intent. And for that activity, we'll target an audience using some relevant keywords, and whoever's running that activity is going to have to put a forecast in place beforehand. If we're getting budget signed off for this, you know, we're going to need to tell people what return we're going to get, and we'll put our measurement KPIs in place, again, probably around revenue. Now, if you've got RocketMill running this activity, it will be generating decent revenue at a good ROI, so, you know, you'll want to expand. So you'll probably think, you know, what other channels can we run some activity on? So you might decide that YouTube's a good platform to reach a relevant audience. So you create your YouTube strategy, you set your targeting to find your new audience on YouTube. Again, you'll need to put a forecast together for that, and you'll need to put your measurement KPIs in place before running any activity. And we might decide to run some activity on one of the walled gardens, maybe a social platform, but we do a similar thing. We set our targeting to reach an audience over there, and we forecast and we put our measurement KPIs in place. Now, I think the problem with this is that we very often treat these channels in silo. We forecast for them separately, we report on them separately. We often structure teams around them. You might have a social team, a search team, a display team, for example. But the thing we forget when we're planning and activating this activity is that these aren't three different audiences. They're the same people. It's the same people that are seeing our ads on search. It's the same people seeing our ads on YouTube. It's the same people seeing our ads on social. And straight away, we can see that the way that we plan and structure doesn't mimic the way that people experience our campaigns. A lot of the time, what we end up doing is spamming the same people with the same or similar messages across all of these platforms. Doesn't represent the relationship that people want with our brands. So it's no wonder that 22% of the UK are currently using ad blockers. They're essentially switching us off, and because of the experience we might be delivering to them. And as marketers, I think we need to do a better job of respecting our audience and delivering better experiences across channel. So how do we solve this? How do we do that? How do we deliver better experiences across channel? And I think there's a lot to this. I mean, you could look at the way that we structure teams, the way we communicate, the way we set KPIs, the way we report. I think we do a lot of that in silo. But I want to look at this from a targeting point of view. I think that the way that we target and build audiences in separate platforms, separate marketing platforms, leads us and guides us to thinking about them as separate people. And when we build those audiences and target them separately, we lack that holistic view of how people are experiencing our campaigns, not just looking at metrics in singular platforms. And I think the only way that we get that holistic view is to centralize our targeting and our audience management. Now, being at Google gives me the opportunity to pitch one of their products here. If you're using the 360 suite, you have Audience Center, which is a great tool, but ultimately I'm talking about using a data management platform. There are Lots of options out there depending on the vertical you're in, the data that you need to use, with varying prices and commitments. You could even build your own one if you've got the team to do it. It might be a bit of a commitment, but either way, I think that we need to take the audience management and the targeting out of our marketing platforms into a centralized platform like a DMP. Now, to give you an idea of how I think this starts to change the game and helps us deliver better experiences across channel, I'm going to walk you through how a DMP works in 5 easy steps. Don't worry, we're going to keep this very high level. We're not going to get too technical. I don't want anyone falling asleep on me. So starting with step 1. So the first thing we do is we plumb in all of the data that you have, your campaign performance, your website statistics, CRM data, offline data like in-store sales if you have bricks and mortar stores. It all starts with the data that you plumb in. The more data we get in there, the better that holistic view will be across all of the activity that we're running. Once we have that data in there, we know that data should represent people, but when it's sitting in different marketing platforms, it doesn't do a very good job of that. So we need to stitch that data together to give us a more rounded view of each user. So we're no longer looking at metrics from individual channels. And the great thing here as well is that depending on what DMP you're using, you can fill in some of those missing gaps with data from third parties. So we can layer on things like interests, hobbies, life events, more detailed demographics data like income, and we're suddenly getting a much richer view of the users that we're interacting with as brands. The third thing then, we can start analysing that data. We can really start understanding the audience and find out what makes them up, what makes them tick. And some DMPs will use machine learning or automate some of this in terms of pulling out common correlations or statistics to help you understand the audience, or you might need to do a little bit of digging yourself. But at this point, it's not about building audiences for targeting, it's about gaining a deeper understanding of the people that are interacting with our brands. We can then start using those insights to inform our marketing strategy and our messaging, some of the stuff that Ian was talking about earlier. Once we have that deeper understanding, we can then start segmenting our audiences based on the way that we want to target and interact with them. Grouping users who have similar relationships with our brands, whether that's the first time that they've interacted with one of our ads or whether they're a loyal customer. And then we can really start planning that experience that we want to deliver to people. We're no longer thinking in silo, in channels. We can think about the sequences of messages that we want to deliver to people based on the actions that they've taken. For example, if someone interacts with a brand campaign, we might want to follow up with a more product-focused ad. And if someone's a loyal customer, we might want to target them with a special offer to make them feel valued. And we're starting to think about the different people that interact with our brands and the different relationships we have with them. And then lastly, once we've planned how we want to communicate, we can push those audiences into our marketing platforms for activating and executing the campaigns and targeting those users. And this even includes some of the walled gardens of certain social platforms that without using a data management platform are ultimately operating in silo using their own data. So that's a very quick overview of sort of the steps you can take in using a DMP to start to communicate more holistically to users across channels. So just a bit of a summary, I think this approach completely flips the thinking on its head and puts the focus on how we want to communicate with people, not the channels that we want to use. The channel's just a tactic for delivering a message. And secondly, when we aggregate all of our data into one place, it gives us much better insights. It gives us a much more holistic view of exactly what's going on from a person's point of view, not an individual channel's point of view. And the great thing about controlling the targeting from a centralized place is that we can control the message that we deliver to an individual user at any time across any channel. If someone interacts with one of our paid search ads, for example, we can deliver them a follow-up message on whatever channel they visit next. We're really tying the dots together and creating an experience for someone. Now, the solution that I've proposed to that problem, that sort of cross-channel problem, is a very tech-heavy one. And I think in media we focus a lot on technology, and I think we need to be a bit careful. The technology is only part of the solution. You still need the right people in your business to make this work. And advertising technology will continue to evolve and generate new possibilities for marketers. But for the time being, it has its limitations. It can't walk into your office, understand your brands, and empathize with your audience. You still need the human element. You still need us as marketers, which is great because it means we're still in a job. We're not being replaced yet. And whatever ad tech you're using, you still need that. You still need good creative, that good strategic thinking, that great messaging, the stuff that Beth and Ian were talking about to engage your audience. And on the other side, you need that skilled analysis that's going to drive actionable insights that you can feed back into your marketing strategy. Technology is not going to solve all of our problems. That's the message I'm trying to get across, but we still need to think and act in the right way. But one thing I do think it can be used for is delivering better experiences across channel and putting people first. Thank you very much.